A very good morning. We're glad you're still with us here on Morning at NTV. That's the hashtag Morning at NTV on Twitter. The conversation is big. Now, in the last 48 hours, the political landscape in the country, well, witnessed what some could describe as a passing fad. However, there are those who are saying it could either change the politics of the country for the worse or for the better, depending on which particular point of view or vantage point where you are and how you look at this. We shall be, of course, glad to have your view. You can join the conversation on Twitter using the hashtag Morning at NTV. My Twitter handle is @ChrisKigeni. You can also follow, and then we can follow each other and see exactly how we can also be part of shaping national discourse. But here on Morning at NTV, we're glad to be joined by Jonathan Tabalanga, a political analyst, to help us make our way around this development, a cooperation agreement. There are those who are saying it is a coalition that has a coerced party. Others are comfortably saying this is an alliance of the willing. Now, in politics, the semantics of words can sometimes completely blow your mind. We don't want ourselves to find ourselves in a position where we do not understand the dynamics of what is going to happen, since the Democratic Party as a party has distanced itself from the president, saying that what appears to be a cooperation agreement has not been ratified by the National Executive Committee, nor discussed by the other top organs within the party. Now, that is a bit of a misnomer. Yesterday, we spoke to Mr. Opio Okoleru, the spokesperson of the Democratic Party, and he was very categorical. DP does not know of the cooperation agreement that Mao is signing with President, or rather signed with President Museveni. That alone says a lot. However, we cannot claim to know exactly what is going on, especially the finer aspects of it. But those who understand the texture of Uganda's political fabric perhaps can help us do that. And of course, Jonathan Tabalanga, many thanks for joining us this morning on the show. A very good morning.
Good morning, Chris.
First and foremost, were you taken aback when you had news of this latest, avalanche in our politics? Or you were like, there we go, it is something that we expected to happen and it is simply coming to fruition?
Good morning, viewers, and thank you, Chris, for inviting me. I was a little bit surprised because the stature of the man himself is what shocked me.
Yeah.
Because previously I'd made statements that he would not really join government at any cost, and I think he betrayed his own words. But of course, in terms of crossing over to NRM, it's not the first time that people from the opposition have
done that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was expected, but from
other players.
Yes, from
not
other,
necessarily
not necessarily Norbert Mao, because Norbert Mao seems to be a seasoned politician. He knows the waters.
Forgive me for interrupting you early on your submission, but Norbert Mao, for the last 1 year or two, has found himself in a spot of bother where he cannot explain whether he's actually in bed with the National Resistance Movement or not. Within his own party, top officials have come out very strongly to say Mao is dealing with the National Resistance Movement, and that this happened perhaps vindicates the likes of Betty Bachireke Namboze and even Elias Lukwago, who himself, of course, also moved from DP to the Forum for Democratic Change.
Chris, there is a famous philosopher, perhaps you know him, he's called Nicole Machiavelli, and he coined one of the most amoral terms, that the end justifies the means. And for him, according to Machiavelli, in politics, morals are inconsequential, are secondary. And this, if you want to know what the president does, is Machiavelli says that you have to maintain or retain power at any cost. And in this regard, including either we shall say buying or wooing those from the opposition. So Norbert Mao, as a person, he must have been challenged financially, because self-interest is real in politics. Yeah. And you cannot distance self-interest from politics. Nobody will fight for you.
That is essentially what defines it.
Yes. Yeah. So he has been given a very, very important position in Museveni's government. And yesterday I was listening to a radio station, and he said that he drafted this so-called cooperation agreement himself.
Yeah. He alluded to it.
Yes, so yeah. I think it is true that the DP as an institution was not consulted in this regard. And of course, they're aggrieved. They feel betrayed by the principal. And for me, it was expected based on the statements he has been making over time. Yes.
Now, this is very huge, and I don't want to describe it as a fundamental change. What I see is, again, a mere change of guard from Norbert Mao, President DP, to now Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs. But allow me dwell on the fact that this particular docket of cabinet has been well, unoccupied for the last 1 year. It is understood that at the time of appointment of the cabinet in which this particular docket found itself unoccupied, Mao was supposed to take it on. So negotiations have been going on for the last 1 year to have Mao come on board, but I think Mao wanted the Democratic Party to come in as an institution, but that was impossible. And then perhaps he had to take the final leap and say, well, if they can't, I'll do it. I'll go alone. But again, the fact that there hasn't been consultation, again, defeats that narrative that I'll go at it alone because the other ones have what? Have refused. So we do not know how exactly this is going to play out. Does he have now to effectively resign as president of the Democratic Party, or he's got to be presented or make his case to the National Executive Committee to sell the idea of cooperation with them?
Because you cannot, Chris, you cannot say you're going to sell the idea when you've taken it. He has already taken the decision. And yes, so ideally he did not consult. Now, one thing has to happen. He has to resign, or he has to be forced out. And I am anticipating chaos at DP. Yeah. And he will be forced out, and they'll get a new new president for the party. And one of the things we've not talked about is also you need to give credit to the president for being able to actually fish ahead of another
political party.
Yes.
You know?
So as much as we want to say that DP this, DP that,
politics,
but politics is crafty. There's nothing more than that. Yeah. You know the way you play your cards. And weakening the opposition is one of the agendas of government. Yeah, of because if you do not weaken the opposition, then you have a strong opposition that will take power from you. So for me, one of the things we have to acknowledge is the president has been very smart by getting him to be part of his government. But for DP has always been a victim of crossovers, right from the 60s. Yeah. So, but this time, this is huge because you're talking about the head of a political party going in bed with the president and then getting a position in government. He says it is a cooperation agreement, but it is nothing more than crossing over because you cannot say that you're going to serve DP and serve NRM. Okay. Have you had an opportunity to peruse the document, the cooperation agreement? No. Not really. Now, we have had an opportunity to do. I did the second reading of that particular cooperation agreement, and I was at pains to find exactly where they are going to cooperate. There's nothing. I don't even have to read it. Okay. Why? One of the things I need to tell you, Chris, is in politics, it is either you're with me or you with them. But the president knows how to play his cards. If you can't beat them, you join them. And this is, I think Norbert Mao knew that he could not beat NRM, and therefore he had to join them. But also, this economy has swallowed him. It is not a pretty good economy, as you may know. He might be depressed as a human being. Isn't that unfair characterization of the man? No. And his circumstances? Politics, what is self-interest, for example? Interest is about personal enrichment. So you think he's going to work for who in NRM? he's working for himself and his family, as they always say. So for me, for DP, they have to find someone else. But also they need vibrancy. They lack some bit of vibrancy in that party.
All right. Allow me just delve a little bit deeper into the personality and persona of Norbert Mao. The fact that we are all taken aback. To some, it's a surprise. To others, it is something they could describe as the political cunning of a man who demonstrated right from his early political days within Makerere University as guild president, and later coming to parliament, and then going on to become the chairman of Gulu. He's a man who plays his cards pretty well to his advantage most of the time. Now, within the last 5 years, he was very vocal about these allegations against him that were labeled by political actors of how he's working with the government, and then he put on a very spirited defense of how he's not actually doing that. And then all of a sudden we see a total twist in the script. This leaves the country in a position where we cannot, for example, trust anybody. Even if you, like the locals in my village say, put your tongue over the, over the, you know, the flat iron. It's just, that is a translation. Where do you see the fabric of politicians going forward, coming out and saying things? Should we even believe what they say? Of course, the fact that somebody would question why I believed them before, but should we be seen to actually look at a politician and say, I think that conviction is good, I think the fact that he's fighting for us is good, this is a guy we can trust, and this is somebody we can give the mantle of power?
Politics in Swahili is called siasa.
Siasa.
Siasa is a word that connotes a process of untruth.
Untruth.
And for you to come here and say that politicians will come here, will defend and work for your interests, including those who govern us. I will tell you, I'm not sure whether you'll have a politician who will come and speak the truth. They always hide the truth. And everything they do it for their own benefit. So for me, you talked about Norbert Mao. Norbert Mao, I've been following him. He one time accused the ones who crossed over to Noob that they were cohabiting with Noob. Now they got married. So now, one of the accusations that came out after he crossed over, that now he has actually really married the other side. So for me, Norbert Mao, as a person, his political career had gone down a little bit, and in my opinion, he was very unpopular within even his own party, because you see, if you have all these members of parliament crossing over to NRM, and you're unable to get others who would go to parliament and be a force to compete and also present an agenda that is, let's say, the opposition agenda, that is the alternative government. So for me, I think he was unable to do so many things as a leader of the party. He talked about, when he came in, he talked about reviving the party to its former glory. He didn't do that. In fact, he was number one. By the time he came in, I think DP was number one. Now FDC overtook DP. Now you have Noob, and now he's number 3 in terms of ranking when we're talking about opposition parties. So for me, I think he has really not done enough to galvanize his own party. So it was about time, looking at the numbers from his own judgment. I think it is better that he has gone, and I think it's good for DP. People are saying that DP this, DP that, but I think DP will survive. It has been happening since the 60s.
Okay.
Yeah.
We shall, of course, later delve into how the Democratic Party shall emerge from this, whether damaged or stronger, and with an opportunity to build a more vibrant and perhaps more trusted leaders within its circles. But allow me talk about the fact that now that of course he's being vetted this morning at around about 9 a.m. He will be entering the room where MPs led by the Speaker will be able to scrutinize his suitability for the job. Of course, we know he will be vetted. When he comes on and takes the docket of justice and constitutional affairs, he's one of the country's finest lawyers,
yes.
No doubt about that. He understands the fight for human rights within the country. He understands the justice system more than anyone else. And do you see that perhaps there is a silver lining on this very dark cloud in terms of perhaps, well, the justice system getting, even if it is a very minor aspect of reform that is needed?
Well, I think that is very difficult. Remember, he comes from, I would say now that he's coming from another party. And his kind of rhetoric he's been using as a member of or DP president, he can't use the same. Now there's a principle. He has to report to someone.
He has to report to.
So most of these decisions must be agreed on from a party position as NRM. So you cannot come out and say, I am making this decision as Minister of Constitutional Affairs, as DP president. Even when he says that it is a cooperation agreement, there is nothing like that in politics. You can agree on a number of issues as politicians, even when you come from different parties, but signing and working for people means that you're with them.
You've effectively
yes. So for me, in terms of human rights and the other issues you've talked about, it's all about what is the NRM position on these issues. It is not about what is Mao saying as a former leader of DP. So for me, I think he cannot go out of the playbook of NRM to implement his own ideas. He has to consult with the president. If he doesn't consult with the president, it is not going to go down well. He will be sacked.
He will be sacked.
Yes.
So effectively, if you were to give Norbert Mao a time frame of survival, political survival, what could that look like? Is it a case of 1 year, 2 years? It
depends on how he pleases the president. You know, one of the things is going to be given a scorecard of what he's supposed to do. And it is from that scorecard that he is supposed to use. But also, within the NRM, there are people who might be against the appointment. Remember, there are so many NRM cadres who are lawyers who would love to have taken over that position. And they're not going to be looking at him as a friend. As a friend. So this is how politics goes. So for me, I don't think he has a very good time in there. He has to fight his way and he has to endear himself to the NRM cadres. If he doesn't, then it is not going to go down well.
Okay, no doubt you can be rest assured Norbert Mao is a man of great political cunning, and for those who have followed Uganda's history, especially for the last 30 years, know that he can do things that, well, unsettle the landscape. He's just done that, of course, and of course, heading into government as a Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs, a lot remains to be seen. One thing I personally have noticed in the last 48 hours is that the man's powers of oration have diminished incredibly. He's struggling to piece together a few words. It is something that is very uncharacteristic of Norbert Mao, but you can understand the kind of position he's in. Let's first take a look at some of the stories that were covered by the very formidable team of NTV Newsroom, especially after news of Mao's appointment broke before we could even take in the fact that he had signed a cooperation agreement with NRM.
Democratic Party members have found themselves in an awkward situation of political quagmire with the appointment of the party President General Norbert Mao as Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs.
The members are in panic, but I really want to tell them that there is no reason for them to get worried because everything is still under control. Democratic Party is still intact.
Accepting the job and after successful vetting by Parliament means Mao will serve the interests of the National Resistance Movement government, which he has always vehemently opposed.
There's a time for everything. There's a time to fight and there's a time to make peace.
The appointment in a mini cabinet reshuffle comes just hours after Mao, in the company of the Democratic Party Secretary General Gerard Siranda, who has also expressed interest in joining the East African Legislative Assembly, met with President Yoweri Museveni at State House in Entebbe, where the parties say they signed a cooperation agreement.
We have not had the opportunity to peruse the document as members of the National Executive Committee. Subsequently, this renders the document to be without any legal force binding on DP until such a time when the National Executive Committee shall ratify the same.
Both Opio and Siranda insist that the party has not gone the Uganda People's Congress way of getting swallowed up by NRM. This despite being tight-lipped on the specifics of the agreement.
The details of this agreement will be made public after all the entities agree. I'm only coming out to let the country know that we have entered into a cooperation, agreement of cooperation. We have not done a merger.
However, the appointment of Mao as a cabinet minister in the NRM government raises the question of whether it was one of the points of cooperation in the agreement. The NRM Secretary General Richard Odwong divulged some details of the cooperation agreement.
In the areas of governance, in the areas of accountability, in the areas of human rights, in the areas of representation, where possible.
The party honchos state that the signed document is purposed at causing a peaceful transition from within the NRM. Political pundits agree that the move is appropriate.
It is a good gesture that indicates political maturity as a country. Moving forward as a country, we used not to have such a thing, but now that opposition parties can find a line of cooperation with the ruling party, it is a sign of political tolerance and maturity.
It is very healthy. DP leadership might have calculated that they cannot win or come closer to national power unless if they give in through, coalition, working together. It could be a strategy. It is happening in Kenya.
But they say it might be the blow that signals the death of Uganda's oldest political party, which recently experienced a mass exodus of members to the National Unity Platform NUP, headed by Robert Chagulanyi. They are sad that other opposition parties are staring at the same fate.
Now this should be a lesson to the remaining political parties. Can't they also come out and make a coalition? Make a memorandum of understanding so that they start speaking with the same voice, have strong force. It should be, because now this memorandum of understanding makes NRM stronger.
As a whole, politically, the opposition has been casted in a big bad shadow. Now people will treat the opposition with mistrust and political suspicion. And once that one gets there into the wider public, the common voter on the ground will always associate what has happened today that it is the same spirit as the political opposition players have.
The experts also believe that Museveni's pulling of the opposition into the NRM is to make it easy for the ruling party that has been in power for close to 40 years to govern or bring forward potential leaders who could take over after Museveni. Kakuba argues that the president has not groomed anyone within the NRM who can lead the party.
The Democratic Party has defended the new position of working with the National Resistance Movement government. They said this is important in ensuring a peaceful transition that many Ugandans have yearned for several years. However, political scholars, much as they endorse this position, they say the party faces a difficult time ahead. Jackson Onyango, reporting for NTV.
Thanks, Jackson Onyango, for that report. And here in studio, we do have Jonathan Tabalanga, a political analyst who is helping us make our way around this very enormous decision on the part of the Democratic Party President Norbert Mao. As you've been hearing, some scholars are saying mistrust and political suspicion will now be emboldened within the population when it comes to how they regard those who are within the opposition. Let me just put it to Mr. Tabalanga. The fact that the opposition has often struggled on its own to create a single block in the battle of well, dislodging the national resistance movement. This particular development doesn't offer them any advantages at all. However, if they were, as one of the political analysts alluded to, can galvanize themselves and form a single bloc, use the same energy to be able to come up as a force and perhaps be able to counter the NRM and perhaps stand a chance of dislodging it from power. Does that sound like something that is feasible?
One of the things that you need to understand is, one, if you don't have numbers, it is difficult for you to dislodge the NRM. And coalitions always work when there are numbers. If your numbers are not adding up, like for example, I'll give you an example of Israel. They formed a coalition to form a government because the ruling government, or Benjamin Netanyahu, did not get the majority.
Couldn't get the majority,
so
yeah.
the coalition is always for the small parties so that they can take over government. Now, the coalitions we talk about here in Uganda are not real proper coalitions, because what is the aim of the coalition? If you oppose, because the government still retains the numbers. Now, what these guys have to do in the opposition, they need to make sure that they get the numbers in parliament that would threaten the establishment. But right now, as we speak, there's nothing more than just talking, because you cannot have 54 MPs.
Battle against more than 250.
350. So one of the things they have to do is they need to get more constituents in parliament so that they can compete favorably. And now coalitions can work. Right now, these coalitions we talk about are not realistic. So anybody who thinks about DP, NOB, and FDC, even now, if, for example, they form a coalition, what would they do? They will do nothing, because the numbers do not add up. So that's why the president is very, very categorical when he says, I need my numbers. I need people, even if they are sleeping in parliament, it is okay, but yeah, I need my numbers. So the agenda of the opposition cannot be advanced with the small numbers they have in parliament. One of the things they have to do is they need to strategize and see how they can get more members of parliament in the House. But right now they don't. So the advantage is still with the NRM.
Numbers, the way, when I hear you speak, all I see is that numbers are a tactic.
Yes.
Not a strategy. Okay?
No, I think you mean the same thing.
No. Numbers are a tactic in achieving a particular set of goals and objectives. Now, if they have a strategy, of course, the numbers come within parliament and the operations of parliament. Legislation, pushing agenda.
Yes.
Political parties operate in bigger spaces away from parliament.
Yes.
And that's where the bigger strategy is. Shouldn't that be an opportunity to strengthen the strategy and simply bring on the numbers game as a tactic?
Yes. You know, one of the things, if, for example, you had NOB and FDC forming a coalition to form structures at the lowest level, so that they can get more representation in the House, that would be a very good strategy. Now, but remember, if you fighting for positions, if you're fighting for your survival, first of all, these people in the opposition are not rich.
And you seem to suggest they should be.
Yeah, because you see, when you have challenges, financial challenges sometimes, because structures, even NRM still struggles to put up proper structures. So how about those in the opposition? It is not very easy.
Nope debunked that particular assertion by unveiling in the headquarters. And
no, but the headquarters, you know, that is a building. That is a building.
Okay.
How many LC1s do you have in the country? That will push your agenda, because you see, politics is not about the top most, but that's sometimes right, from the grassroots. So how much have they done to make sure that everybody from the grassroots believe in this agenda of NOB and FDC and DP?
Okay.
Because you see, you can speak from the towns, the cities, where people are able to see the news, where people are able to read the newspaper.
But many times the real voters are unable to do that.
But the real voter, like my mother in the village, she has only one agenda, you know, to be okay, and the security, and these are the things the government is always talking about.
Peace of mind.
Peace of mind. So for me, yes, the strategies are there, but also the disorganization within these parties. Because you see, you've had Mao castigating NOP of not joining IPOD. And that has been one of the reasons, I think, that pushed him to even join NRM. Because he advocated for this money, the 35 billion, now they've increased. And NOP was saying, we are not going to join because this is not about...
Well, if the current state of affairs is anything to go by, castigating the National Unity Platform appeared like accountability on the part of Mao.
Yes.
Anyway, let's take flight and go into, of course, during the week and in the days to go, we shall be hearing from political leaders, especially within the opposition, on how they plan to go forward with this. How should they go forward?
One, of course, they have to, first of all, present a position to the public that is, I don't know how to put it, but they have to make sure that they speak to the public.
Believable.
Yeah, that is. Yeah. I don't. if you say, I don't know. I don't know whether people still believe people in the opposition, but of course, even within the opposition, there are people who have been very, very skeptical of the actions of Norbert Mao. So I think, of course, people still believe some people within the opposition, which is very, very fine. But I mean, we should be talking about DP. There are people who trust their NOP and their FDC.
Yeah.
In terms of crossovers, we've not seen anybody crossover from, I think, NRM, apart from an LC5, I mean from NOP, apart from someone in Masaka, LC something, who crossed over to yeah, but in terms of in terms of NOP has been able to get everybody together, and they've not crossed over. But for DP, the picture does not look very, very good.
Allow us find space to bring in the context rather of how things happen in Kenya. Kenya, crossovers are the order of the day. And alliances are created on the whim of a minute or two. You go to bed and the next morning there's an alliance between two people who were talking against each other just a few days ago. Isn't it about time, perhaps, that our politics begins to embrace these kind of workings? Because somebody will come out and claim that the decision taken by Norbert Mao is pragmatic, in a sense, away from the semantics of the fact that he could be grappling with economic issues, as many of us are, away from the semantics that there is actually a need to work from within to be able to condition the kind of reforms that you want as a political leader. Is there the possibility that we can adopt alliances of the willing, not necessarily coalitions of the coerced, like it could be in this case because of circumstances here and there? Shouldn't we do that? Shouldn't we be seen to work together?
One, it is always very good to work together, and it's very possible that political parties can work together. The Kenyan way is quite different. The Kenyan way is always happening. It always happens during the last year, when it is only 1 year to election, you see people crossing over. But these coalitions are coalitions to get the majority, and they're not about working for someone. So their coalitions are very different from ours. If you've seen Ruto and the other people, they actually still maintain the leadership of their political parties. All they do is form a coalition to defeat a strong candidate. And this is what they do. You've seen it with Kenyatta and Ruto, now Kenyatta and Odinga. And this is the order of the day. And the public believes in these coalitions. The question is, do the public in Uganda believe in coalitions with government? and you need, first of all, to educate the people that you know.
Mao's issue gives us the answer.
Yes, it is very... No, it's not about...
As in, it shows exactly where we are.
Yeah, because you see, it would be very nice if Mao joined NRM so that they can defeat someone.
Okay.
Yes.
Interesting there.
Yes, but he's joining there to do what? To defeat who? Who is the problem now?
That's a question I hadn't encountered on my own. The tables have been turned on me here, but of course I'll just ensure that I flip back the table on this gentleman, no doubt. Now, President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni said a very poignant statement that the Democratic Party is an unserious group without him. and that he himself is Democratic Party. Now we are seeing a man who is at the top of the ruling party, but who has the nostalgia of the Democratic Party in him. Does this speak of the core of our politicians, that they are simply working for the comfort of what they want to achieve for that particular day, but they are something that the dispensation doesn't give them the opportunity to practice?
Chris, it's good you mentioned that the president loves the Democratic Party. He was a firebrand in the Democratic Party.
Oh, so he's rescuing
so
his
he's concerned about what is happening in that party. And of course, you've seen him giving positions to so many DP people, including Norbert Mao, including the lady from the former sports minister, Nachiwala, and many others. Yeah. And I think one of the things people have to realize is that the president is too clever, and he knows how to do the things. Somehow, as the country is thinking about other things,
he's able to bring in something that completely takes your attention
and I think he's not afraid to appoint all these people who oppose him. I would say that would be a plus for him.
That works for him.
Yeah, it works for him, and also it is very good of the man himself, because he knows that if I appoint Mao, the burden is not on me. The burden is on Mao to explain why he has joined me. And it is happening now. That's why I'm in studio. Everybody wants to know why Mao joined NRM. The burden is not on the president, so Mao should be able to speak to the public. And
interestingly, the very articulate gentleman is struggling to put that forward.
Yeah,
it's understandable. No doubt. We shall, of course, be waiting.
Because you see, where do you, because you see when you say cooperation agreement, have you been given permission by your party? I don't think this has happened. And DP cannot be seen to have given permission to their own leader to take on a ministerial position. So for me, it is quite a problem for him.
Well, you bring back an aspect that, of course, I would love us to throw a little bit more flesh on. The fact that there are positions that have been ring-faced within this particular cooperation agreement. One is for Norbert Mao to be Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs. There are reports that actually the position that had been wanted in this particular arrangement by Mao was a prime ministerial, around there, because we seem to have four. There's Prime Minister herself and then her deputies. Apparently, these are reports we are yet to confirm that it was a prime ministerial position, but now it's Justice and Constitutional Affairs docket. There is also a position for Dr. Gerard Siranda to go to the East African Legislative Assembly as the DP representative. The NRM has endorsed. Now that the East African Treaty allows other opposition parties to elect their own representatives, I don't know how that is going to play out. You could perhaps give us an idea, given your inner knowledge of how these particular things operate. But most importantly, now that there are members within the Democratic Party who are moderate, they don't want to be seen not to support Norbert Mao's decision. They also don't want to be seen on the other side, and they are waiting. Could I be the one that could be crafted into these other positions that have been ring-fenced and identified for the Democratic Party? So some are quiet right now, and it's understandable. Do you see a faction of Democratic Party going with Norbert Mao and the likes of Gerard Siranda to be able to benefit from this particular arrangement?
No, I think that is not an issue, because there are so many. Mukasambide is a representative of DP in the East African Parliament. Yeah. Did they sign a cooperation agreement? No, they didn't. No. It is about agreeing within, because of course NRM takes about 7 positions. The 3 are left for the opposition, because the majority.
It actually takes 6.
Yeah,
then,
okay, 6.
3 for the opposition
and 1 for the independent. Yes, I think so. Yeah. So these things have been happening, and no agreement has ever been signed. Yeah. So for me, Gerard Siranda can actually sail through to the East African Parliament without
the National Resistance Movement endorsing him.
The moment as opposition parties agree that these are the people we want to go to the East African Parliament, the three, then you'll have two from NOP, one from DP, and then one from the independents. So I do not see how this connects to signing an agreement. So for me, I think everything you see here is about Norbert Mao.
It's about Norbert Mao.
And ring fencing, because if you say you designed this agreement, this memorandum yourself, did you consult Gerard Siranda?
Allow us listening to some of the reactions from some opposition politicians and other players within Uganda's political space. What their reaction to the news of the appointment of Norbert Mao as Minister Designate for Justice and Constitutional Affairs. How did they react to this?
The announcement of the love affair between opposition DP and the NRM and the subsequent appointment of DP President Norbert Mao as minister is, in the eyes of some opposition parties, a dark day, but also an obvious attack by the president to weaken his critics.
What I see happening today is an attempt by Mr. Museveni to take back this country to the state in which it was, of having no parties and having a purely movement system in our country, which again is unfortunate. The DP going with the NRM is not a panacea for the death of political parties. If Museveni wished for this, then, you know, he's in for a rude shock.
You see, a man and a woman can cohabit for a while, but the time comes and the wedding happens. So that's what happened yesterday for Norbert Mao, you know. He has been operating pretentiously, what I'm calling quote-unquote cohabiting, but eventually it has come to the fore. And for me, I am glad that finally the pretense has stopped.
Alliance for National Transformation leader, retired Major General Mugisha Muntu, was hesitant to comment on the deal, but said he hopes DP did a thorough assessment beforehand to avoid being swallowed up.
If you engage in cooperation and you find that you are not going to add weight on already a balance of forces that is in balance or in favor of the positive elements within that organization, so that you take the positive direction. The danger is that when you cooperate, you can easily be overwhelmed and you end up going in the wrong direction, like the ruling party itself would be taking.
Muntu, who worked as Chief of Defense Forces for over 10 years until 1999, said he would hesitate to cooperate with Museveni.
Because what he says in the morning is not what he'll be saying in the evening. It will depend on where his personal interests lay. And being a key actor, that therefore would create, once you engage with an organization which he heads, you'd basically be walking on a very slippery path.
What remains to be seen is if Norbert Mao will hold on to the DP presidency during the time of the two parties' cooperation.
I believe as a leader he took the right step to come to the table of decision making, to be part of this decision making, and to make sure that the decisions that we table before Parliament, we table before Cabinet, we discuss on behalf of the population of the country, has all this in components of democracy, components of human rights, and components of inclusiveness.
Edward Muhumza, NTV.
Thank you, Edward Muhumza, for that report and bringing us the reaction of political leaders within the opposition circles on how, or what rather, they make of the development that saw one of their own, well, jump ship and leave them stranded. That's what I can say right now. Allow me return to Mr. Jonathan Tabalanga, a political analyst who is helping us wade our way through these very muddled political waters this morning. What's your reaction when it comes to how the opposition politicians, we have Patrick Amriat, we also listen to retired Major General Gregory Mugisha Muntu. What do you make of their take on Mao's decision?
They are very uncomfortable with what Mao did because it does not show that the opposition is fighting for the public. and also it does not show cause for them to even fight to dislodge the president or to take over power. It means it's a matter of time for everybody who is at the helm of leadership in the opposition to be wooed by the president and perhaps give them ministerial positions. So for me, yes, Mr. Senyonyi calls it pretense, but there are so many people who are pretending within the opposition. They're only waiting for that call. And yes, there are many who are waiting for that call from the president, and there are many who are willing to become ministers in his government.
All right, time is not our best ally. Allow me transition as we enter the final bend to something that, well, is a positive for President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, especially within the northern region. President Yoweri Museveni has just lost a kingpin in the region following the death of the speaker, Jacob Alanya. And many would see the capture of this really huge fish, in fact, a shark, a whale, in Norbert Mao as something that is going to embolden his ability to galvanize more support, especially in the fact that Jacob Alanya during his time was very instrumental in making sure the national resistance movement is visible within the workings of society, the politics of northern Uganda, but most importantly to endear the national resistance movement to people who had been very suspicious of Museveni and the regime just about 15 or 20 years ago.
I think Museveni has done this without Norbert Mao. He's been able to get the support of the northerners, people in the northern region, and most of them have been voting. In most recent times, they've actually voted for him. Back then, it was the east and some other parts of Uganda, the other side as you cross over to Ankole. But now, the opposition now remains in Teso and Central and most urban centers. And during the, before LRA was flushed out from northern Uganda, it was very difficult to imagine that the president would actually win anything from there. It used to be FDC and UP, this party for Akeda.
The UPC.
The UPC, the UPC. So for me, Museveni has done it without Norbert Mao. It is just showing that he knows how to play his politics well. He knows how to click the right buttons at the right time. So because if he wanted to do that, he would do it when elections were approaching. But he has done it earlier, and perhaps he knows what he has done. But also, he wants to show the public that he's not afraid to appoint even those who oppose him.
All right, thank you very much, Jonathan Tabalanga, political analyst, for helping us wade our way through these political waters. Now let's go to Jinja and see exactly how people there received news of Norbert Mao's signing of a cooperation agreement with the government, but also accepting to be Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs. Rashula Didi is standing by. A very good morning.
To you, Chris, in the studio and our audience of Morning at NTV. Chris, looking at yesterday's adjustment in the leadership structure in the country, yesterday we did see the head of state in the official council trying to aware the country on the new adjustments on the leadership. Now, when you look at Norbert Mao yesterday officially, according to a tweet from the head of the state, he has been appointed as the Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs. But however, this has come up with a lot of mixed reaction looking at some of the responsibilities that Norbert Mao held in the country. First of all, he's yet the president of the Democratic Party. So this alone has actually made people to have mixed reaction. Now, back to Ginger, where I'm standing currently, I was able to interact with some of the few members, the new adjustment, or maybe the new arrangement between Democratic Party president and the head of state, that is President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. Many have termed it as a double deal. They are saying that when you look at Norbert Mao, he's trying to play double deal with the NRM party. This morning I've been joined by one of the youth who is also among those who have actually this adjustment. First of all, when you look at the agreement signed between the two parties, many have not welcomed this in a very good way. Let me first speak to one of the members. Good morning. NTV. Norbert Mao as being a member of Uganda and us being a citizen. What do you have to say about this new adjustment being somebody who within the country? You can look at the camera.
Good morning once again. As the changes made by the president. Game, we can say.
Ginger on their take on developments in the country, especially in light of the signing of a cooperation agreement between Norbert Mao, the president of the Democratic Party, and of course President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni of the National Resistance Movement. Also, the fact that Norbert Mao has accepted in principle his appointment as Minister Designate for Justice and Constitutional Affairs. We do have a bit of technical glitches there. We've been unable to complete that particular segment of this program, but of course on Twitter we are big. The hashtag is Morning at NTV. You can be part of the conversation and be one of those who might shape opinion. Time now for a short break, but do stay with us. We shall be returning with a very interesting conversation about creating a sustainable future.